Correct.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala, we're going to continue along the lines of the discussion I was having yesterday with you. And if I recall correctly, we ended on mentioning a point that was very important to understand when we're talking about guidance in terms of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, in terms of creed and practice and spirituality. And when we're talking about misguidance for those who follow a way other than the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And I mentioned that sometimes you have beliefs, sometimes statements and actions that proceed from someone who outwardly is a Muslim by their declaration or by the way they pray. Apparently, this person's a Muslim. But they carry beliefs or do practices or say statements that in reality take them out of the fold of Islam. Then there are exceptions to that rule where one would believe something or do something or utter something that in and of itself is disbelief. It's kufr. But the judgment of the person due to circumstances and context would not be judged as a disbeliever. And I mentioned that because oftentimes many people, for fear of the judgment of the person, will accept something that its judgment is kufr. The judgment of that thing is kufr. But someone would overlook it, unfortunately, which is not permissible, because of what's going to be the judgment of the one who said it, right? Or did it, or believes it. So, for instance, someone would hold a blasphemous belief, for instance, that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is a body, or that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is in a location, or that he has limits. All of these beliefs are blasphemous beliefs, not permissible for a Muslim to believe. However, there are whole groups of people who outwardly are Muslim that have those beliefs. So because a person may know of that, a person would accept those blasphemous beliefs because they don't want to consider this person as a disbeliever. And the point I want to make for you here, which is extremely important, is understand the rule as the rule itself, and the judgment of people, don't let that change the rule in your heart and mind, right? So in terms of these different beliefs, you have some of them reach the level of disbelief. Some of them reach the level of vile innovation, which is extremely dangerous, but it doesn't take the person out of Islam. That person would become an innovator, right? But still remain a Muslim. However, we would avoid the innovations of that innovator, and we would censor it from the side of enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. So, the point that I want to really emphasize, and I'm very careful how I speak about this subject. The reason being is that I'm aware of extremes. There are some extremes. If you breathe, that's kufr, extreme. Well, the way you breathed, actually, it sounds like you perverted, that extreme. If you think, it's kufr. Well, actually, what you meant by that was, that's an extreme. Then there's the other extreme where it all's good, no matter what you say or believe or what you do. It's all good. So these are extremes. Al-Sunnati wal Jama'ah is in the middle of those extremes. And I went way extreme, they're not that extreme, but that's how it would feel when you're dealing with such people. Right? That's an extreme. Then there's other extreme, to almost, there is no rules in the religion. Just do what you want. As long as you say I'm Muslim, it's fine. So we have to avoid both extremes, and we have to find our way in the middle. So this section I want to read before I continue in what I was talking about Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. I want to read this section as a balance for us. And inshallah, that's what we'll do today. So we're in our book, in the notes, Al-Maqasid, in the notes, 8.3, which is a warning against careless accusations of unbelief. So that is a section written by the Imam of Mecca in his time, Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, rahimahullah ta'ala. And why he mentioned this? Originally, he was talking about al-Wahhabiyya because their stance was that everyone are disbelievers except them. And their whole doctrine was organized, arranged to make other Muslims disbelievers so they could take their property and shed their blood. If I summarize the whole doctrine of the Wahhabiyya, that was originally, I'm not talking about what we have today in our communities. I'm talking about the original followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and what they were doing. And here I should highlight something. Most people don't even know what they were doing. Most people who follow that movement in their books have no clue of the mentality of those people, right? Right? They have no idea. If they read it, they probably wouldn't even listen to that stuff if they understood. So the original people, they had this idea. So they would take everything and turn it to make takfir on somebody. If you visit the grave, you are a kafir and a mushrik. If you make a tawassul, you are a kafir, a mushrik. If you make a tabarruk, you are a kafir or a mushrik. So many ways they make people kafir, right? Which in reality is extreme. So he was responding originally to that type. But that also existed, unfortunately, among Ahl Sunnah, where some people went so far that no one is freed from the judgment of kufr. Even him, Sheikh Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, was judged as a kafir by Sunni Muslims without no consideration of just he's kafir. So it happens. In fact, I've rarely seen a scholar escape someone considering him a kafir. So that's how far we have gone to extremes, where almost no one is free of being accused of kufr. But that has a way of shaitan using that as a means to us considering the religion as a bunch of confusion. And people don't know, and then give you extreme permissibility because of it. So you do anything, even things that are really kufr. So we should have some balance. So let's read this section. Bismillah, al-Fatiha to the soul of the author, rahimahullah, al-Fatiha. Mm.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, 8.3. A warning against careless accusations of unbelief. From 1.4. 8.3a. Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, rahimahullah. Many people err, may Allah Ta'ala correct them, in understanding the real reasons they put a person beyond the fold of Islam, excuse me, and necessitate that he be considered an unbeliever.
And
There,
here's the point. To say something is wrong does not mean that you're going to necessarily have to consider whatever this nonsense is, please don't touch it. Be very careful. We are okay, good. Okay, to consider something wrong does not necessarily necessitate that you make someone a disbeliever. You can say something is wrong, and a person can still remain a Muslim but be sinful and need to be corrected. So it's notions that need to be corrected. They're not necessarily all the time disbelief. Good. You good? Hold on. Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
there is scholarly consensus ijma' as defined at 8.5 that it is unlawful to charge with unbelief anyone who faces Mecca to pray, unless he denies the Almighty Creator, majestic and exalted, commits open polytheism that cannot be explained away by extenuating circumstances, denies prophethood or something which is necessarily known as being of the religion, or which is mutawatir, per translator, i.e., the Quran or those hadith which, like the Quran, have been related by whole groups of individuals from whole groups and multiple contiguous channels of transmission leading back to the Prophet. Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, such that the sheer number of separate channels at each stage of transmission is too many for it to have been possible for all to have conspired to fabricate them, and which are thereby obligatory to believe in, and denial of which is unbelief, kufr, or which there is scholarly consensus, ijma, upon its being necessarily known as part of the religion. Necessarily known means such things as the oneness of Allah Ta'ala, the attributes of prophethood, that prophetic messengerhood has ended with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, the resurrection on the last day, the final reckoning, the recompense, and paradise and hell, the denier of any of which is an unbeliever, in which no Muslim has an excuse for ignorance of, unless he is a new convert to Islam, who is excused until he can learn, but not afterwards.
And this, so if you look at all these are exceptions when judging a person as a disbeliever. And the last point, the one I want to highlight, which is the case of many of us, even though we've been Muslim for years, the judgment for us is really like new Muslims, because we didn't have the opportunity to learn our religion properly. So we don't know what is consensus. We don't know what is mutawatir. We don't even know some things that are necessarily known to be of the religion. That are necessarily known to be of the religion, we don't know them, right? So it is very likely, but by people in that case, to come across things they don't even know is a part of the religion at all, because they never learned properly at all. Never even had the ability to learn properly. So when you're dealing with that, and that is the case of most of us, right? You can't just rush to judge such a person as a disbeliever. But you can deal with the statements and the beliefs and tell the religious rule to that. But as for the person, that's a different case. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. Many of us come from anthropomorphic backgrounds in the West. So we have some kind of imagery of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of God. We have some kind of physical type of thought about the Creator. Even if it's not defined, it has some physicality to it, right? That's just from our background. So when we run into al-mushabbiha or al-mujassima, those people in our time who liken Allah to his creation or give Allah bodily attributes, and the way they say it as Islam, it's easy for a person who never learned Islam to accept it. And they do it because to them, they actually think that they're not resembling Allah to the creation, because they don't know what resembling Allah to the creation is. So last night, I'm preparing some things for future classes. So I'm reading, let me make sure I'm reading it correctly. One second. I'm going to give you an idea if you give me a second. One second, I want to see something. I was reading something yesterday to give you an example. Allahu Akbar. So I'm reading something, right? Yesterday. And I just wanted to get the words right, so I didn't mess the words up. Where did I put it? I can't find it. Oh, so one author, he was talking about attributes of Allah from the modern day mushabbiha. So he was talking about attributes of Allah, and he talked about the attribute that he called an attribute, qadam, which means literally foot, right? So he said, after all his conclusion, after all his talk about this idea he has in his mind, he said, "Walhasilu أنه يجب علينا أن نؤمن بأن لله تعالى قدما," which means, in conclusion, it is obligatory upon us that we believe that Allah has a foot. That's what he said, right? He said, وَإِنْ شِئْنَا كُنَّا رِجْلًا عَلَى سَبِيلِ الْحَقِيقَةِ. And if we wanted to, we could say foot, another word. Qadam and rijl is foot, another Arabic word. He said, in reality, for real. Then he went and said, ma'a adam al-mumathala, right? With not resembling, but it's a real foot. Such talk will confuse anyone who don't know no better. So what does he say? He says, after he quotes some hadith and some verses, right? Then at the end of it, he says that it's obligatory us to believe that Allah has a foot. And if we want to say foot, we mean a real foot. But this foot don't resemble anything. Right? That's the language. So the average person who knows nothing about Islam is going to, he saw a hadith, he saw a verse of the Quran or something, this is the way he twisted words, this is in Sahih al-Bukhari, and he's not going to understand that Allah doesn't have a real foot. Really. He thinks. But in his mind, he doesn't know. Right? And then, to make matters worse, right? He adds, وَلَا نُكَيِّفُ الرِّجْلِ. We don't give a how to the foot. We don't give a how to the foot. There's a real foot. It's really a foot, but how it looks like, we don't talk about that. We don't know, but it's real. So if it's a huge big foot or it's a little teeny foot, it's a foot with width, mass, depth. We don't know all that. We just know it's a real foot. A'udhu billah. And it don't look like our foot. It may be bigger, it may be littler. This is nonsense. But that's what people believe. So you tell that to someone who already thought Jesus was God. Right? You give that to somebody who thought that God is in heaven, and tell them that, and tell them that's Islam, and give them a hadith for that. They're going to believe it. They don't know what is necessary to believe about Allah. They don't even have sound minds to think with because they've been polluted. And that's what someone is telling them is Islam. Right? So such person, their situation is not like someone who grew up around Muslims, who heard Islam. No. Now take that even further, when everywhere you look, that's what's being told to you is Islam. Everywhere you go, every place you go to the Masjid, that's the books you find. You go to Jumu'ah, that was the guys talking on the minbar. You go to the bookstore, that's the books that's available. Now what? What does that person have? How is he going to understand anything other than that? It's impossible unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides that person by his tawfiq. Other than that, it's impossible to escape. Nowhere that person is going to turn except that these crazy ideas are telling them this is Islam. That's the case of a lot of people, especially in our society and in our communities. It doesn't even make sense to the one who's saying it when he think about it. But he don't think about it. He just say it, and he's told, just believe that. Right? So this is why I'm saying we should be careful with putting judgment on people. But the actual belief is totally wrong, right? Now, continue, inshallah.
To judge a Muslim and unbeliever for anything besides the above is a very dangerous thing, as has come in the Hadith. If someone says to his fellow Muslim, you unbeliever, one of them deserves the name. It is not valid for such a judgment to proceed from anyone except someone who knows the things that involve unbelief from those that acquit one of it, in the light of the sacred law and the strict demarcation between faith and unbelief according to the standards of the law of Islam.
And this is important. So when you make judgments on people, you should be a qualified scholar. In fact, a religious judge, to understand circumstances of people, right? I laugh all the time. I would watch people, and I laugh not out of ridicule, just out of amazement. I watch people, right, who have the right belief. They do. But they'll read the books of Ibn Taymiyyah and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and teach those blasphemous beliefs thinking they're the right belief. I watch it all the time. They themselves, the person has the correct belief in Allah. But he reads those Wahhabi books, or she reads those Wahhabi books, and they'll read these popular books. And in those books, that are those ideas, but they don't understand that stuff. They think something else. They're not believing what the author is telling them. I see it a lot, a whole lot. Ibn Taymiyyah believed that. Just what I explained, that's what he believed, which is blasphemous. But he believed it. And he wrote it in his books. And he conveyed it. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, that's what he believed. Ibn Uthaymeen, that's what he said. Actually, that's who I was reading from. That was Ibn Uthaymeen who said what about the foot and the real foot. That was him. That was his book. His explanation of Ibn Taymiyyah's book. Yeah, that's what they believe. And we would be reading that stuff, not even innocent. I don't believe that. But we're reading it, sometimes conveying it, sharing it with each other. We don't know. Right? We don't know. Have no idea. I'm saying the person has the correct belief. They don't believe that, but they don't identify it because there's a hadith there, it's some Quranic verses, and people say, man, that's Quran and hadith. No, this is kufr. But like in the name of Quran and hadith, right? It happens, right? So that's why I say you got to be careful when rushing to judge a person. Most of the people who say that stuff don't believe it. Seriously, they don't. If you talk to them honestly and had a real talk, they're going to shut down and say, man, I don't believe that. Nothing's like Allah. But they scared them into those bad beliefs. I met many people like that. Many. And I know it's real. So that's why I myself, I used to be hard. I've calmed down a whole lot because I realize you're talking to people that don't even know what you're talking about. They don't understand. So whatever's proceeding from them is not what's a reflection of what's in their heart. They don't know. They can't identify. So they say stuff, right? Thinking they're saying the right thing. They honestly believe this is the meaning. And in their mind, they are not liking Allah to his creation. Even though it's explicit words to tell you you're liking Allah to his creation. But they don't know the details of Islamic belief and all. They don't know all that stuff. They don't have no idea. Now, go ahead.
It is not permissible for any human being to rush onto the field and charge another with unbelief on the basis of opinions and imaginings without having checked and made sure, and without firm knowledge. Because of this, we urge the utmost caution, and other than the above mentioned cases, against careless accusations of unbelief, for they are extremely dangerous, and Allah Ta'ala guides to the best of ways, and unto Him is the final destination. مفاهيم يجب أن تصحح.
Mhm. Which are notions that need to be corrected. Remember, we read portions of this book. We're going to return to it at another time. Um, so for us, we have to be brave. Seriously. I'm talking about us as a people. Because there's another problem that helps with this problem. Unfortunately, we don't have enough access as a community to sound Islamic scholarship. We don't even know sound Islamic scholarship because unfortunately, people ain't concerned about us enough to even reach us, right? So most of the scholars that we learn from that are known Sunni scholars, most of us don't know them. All we know is the fabulous five of the Wahhabiyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, Al-Albani, and their supporting cast. That's all we know. The famous five and their supporting cast. The other guys who come off the bench and get in the game. That's all we know. We don't know another scholar on the face of the earth. Right? That's it. You ask a person, tell me, we don't know none. Who do I know? Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, Ibn Uthaymeen, or Bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, and then you can add Al-Bani and the others. That's it. That's our scholarship. You know, out of the tens of thousands of scholars that existed in this ummah, that's all you know. And they weren't even the top level of learned people. I'm not saying they didn't have any knowledge. I didn't say that. I said they weren't of the top levels of scholarship. Right? So how are you going to rush to judge such a person as a kafir? He doesn't even know. And you see how pretty those books are? Human beings, especially Westerners, are attracted to beauty. So you give some book that doesn't have any quality, they're going to think it's fake. When you got this beautiful, nice design book, I'm telling you, their books alone will make you read it and believe it. The way it look. That pays on the mind of people. On the mind of people. It does. Really, really, really. So you have to, all these things need to be considered when you're talking about considering someone as a disbeliever. Even if they said things that are kufr or believe things that are kufr. It's so many circumstances in that you can't just rush. Right? You can't. Now, go ahead.
Deviations and aberrations that are unquestionably invalid.
So now let's talk about other forms of misguidance or innovations that are haram, that are unlawful, but they didn't reach the level of kufr. Right? How do you deal with that? Go ahead.
Muhammad Sayyid al-Buti, rahimahullah. We do not consider
So those two
deviations.
scholars, for you, Rebuilding Amir, these two scholars that are mentioned there, it would be nice to read their books. Unfortunately, very few of their books are translated into English, but they do have some. So that first one, Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, he would be good for you. Why? He lived in Saudi Arabia, and his father was one of the biggest sheikhs in Mecca, Sayyid Alawi al-Maliki, who taught in the Haram before the Wahhabis took over everything, right? Right? They were there, but his father was like a main sheikh in the Masjid in Mecca, right? And a famous scholar in Saudi Arabia, right? Ash'ari, Maliki, Sufi, and all the scholars of Mecca honored him. So that's his son. So that first one. And the other one, so that was the first thing we read, that was by him. And the other scholar that's we're getting ready to read now, Sayyid Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Buti, his father, Sheikh Mullah Ramadan, was one of the biggest scholars in Syria. And his son, Sheikh Muhammad Saeed, who we benefited from as a teacher, he was like the Ghazali of our time in his intellect, in his writings, and he's an Azhari scholar from Damascus, Syria. This right there in the book, Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, and the other Muhammad Saeed al-Buti. So these are two scholars, and if you connect to them, you'll connect to hundreds of scholars, right? Go ahead.
We do not consider deviations or aberrations to include any position reflecting a disagreement between Islamic scholars resulting from differences on derived rulings or particular applications of sacred law. For these all return to its basic methodology. Rather, we categorically affirm that this is a normal variance entailed by the very nature of the matter, as discussed at 8.13, and its methodological basis through though we subject these various viewpoints to an examination of which is the soundest, classifying them according to their relative strengths and weaknesses, each of us through
Okay.
his own reasoning, ijtihad, as defined at 8.14, and judgment.
Mhm. So there are, and we'll talk about this later, there are valid differences of opinion, and then there are invalid differences of opinion. When we're talking about difference of opinion between scholars and schools of thought in issues of fiqh, this is not a blameworthy innovation. Rather, the nature of the sacred law entails that, right? And we'll talk about it, inshallah, and more. Mm.
Nor do deviant and aberrant opinions necessarily entail the unbelief of those who hold them, or being beyond the pale of Islam. Rather, there are some opinions so deviant that they reach the degree of negating what is necessarily known as being of the religion, leading to what the Prophet ﷺ, Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, termed open unbelief. Others whose deviance reaches only the degree of being a violation of the methodological principles concurred upon by scholars of the Arabic language and hence by scholars of Islamic law, entailing blameworthy innovation, bid'ah, and perhaps corruption and turning from the truth without excuse, and still others whose deviance and aberrance wavers between reaching actual unbelief and merely falling within the bounds of corruption and blameworthy innovation. The honest and sincere investigator not finding any firm basis to consider them unbelief, yet not being able to accept with confidence that they are only a marginal deviance that does not compromise the person who holds them or put him outside of Islam. In dealing with this category of deviations and intellectual aberrances, we prefer to follow the way of greater precaution, which in this context consists of understanding people's states insofar as possible as if they were still within the fold of Islam and under its rubric.
Right. Because sometimes the issue is not just cut and dry, especially when you consider people, right? And you're going to give the person the benefit of doubt to keep them in Islam so long as there's the possibility. And even if it's sometimes a far off excuse, sometimes that excuse is necessary. But that doesn't mean you're going to accept the issue. The issue's wrong. We're talking about the person. Mm.
For the mistake of giving them the benefit of the doubt does not entail the losses entailed by making a mistake by not giving them it and accusing them of unbelief and having left Islam, despite which we spare no effect to explain their corruption, and that they have,
Read that 3 times, inshallah, that part.
for the mistake
Despite, we spare no F there.
despite which we spare no effort to explain their corruption, and that they have innovated something Allah Ta'ala mighty and majestic has not given them leave to. Despite which we spare no effect to explain their corruption, and that they have innovated something Allah Ta'ala Almighty and Majestic has not given them leave to. Despite which we spare no effect to explain
No
their
effort, no
corruption.
effort, right?
I'm sorry, I'm seeing things that aren't there. Apologies. Despite which we spare no effort to explain their corruption, and that they have innovated something Allah Ta'ala, mighty and majestic, has not given them leave to.
So whenever you hear me talking about the Wahhabiyya, I'm talking it from this side, right? Even if I talk strong, this is the side I'm talking from it. I'm not necessarily in every case talking about an individual. I'm talking about deviant ideas that are not permissible to believe, right? As for individuals, and I'm looking for excuses, especially for our people, because we deserve them, right? There are a lot, but that don't mean we're going to accept the issue, right? So for us, we have to kind of grow up a little bit in our dealings with one another. Listen, you can tell me the truth. It's fine. And I can disagree with you, and I can tell you what I believe the truth. And we can sort that out as adults, as mature people. Everyone's not going to agree with you. Some legitimately won't agree with you, and some will be mistaken because they don't agree with you. But that's the nature of existence, right? So our job is seeking truth. It's never personal, right? Because you can start at one point and end at another point, right? You may start with bad ideas, and through that dialogue, sincere dialogue, you learn some things and you fix it, which is the objective, right? So you just have to put in yourself, we still learning. And right now we're going to have positions that we understand one way. And as we learn more, there is the possibility that those things may be understood another way, right? And we should give ourselves that flexibility in dealing with others. Hey, I may be right and I may be mistaken. But as I'm right, I'm going to speak on base what I know is right. As information comes and I learn more, I may discover I'm mistaken. And I'll correct that mistakes because I just want to do the right thing, right? That's it, right? And that's why we shouldn't be afraid or intimidated to engage with people. That's how you learn, right? So if I sit down and we talk, you're going to raise some issues. I'm going to raise some issues, right? When you raise issues, I'm going to respect you raising the issues, even if I disagree with them, because I'm getting to see how you see things. And then I'm going to respond. And maybe some things you see right, and that little thing that I saw that you didn't see could help you. And maybe some things that I'm mistaken in, even though I'm right, but I'm mistaken in some of it, you may show me where that mistake is at, and I can fix it, right? Someone said that the common people should stay out of this, right? And leave it to the learned, right? And they define the learned. These issues we shouldn't deal with. But where's the learned in my neighborhood? Show me. Where's the learned in my environment among my people? Show me. The learned is singing songs with you in the suburbs. How they're going to help us while we wait for them. They're in the suburbs singing songs when they visit our country. They don't even come to us. And then when they come to us, they try to get us to sing songs and not teach us. We need to learn. We don't need to sing songs. We need to learn. And then maybe we learn we can sing some songs, but we need to learn. But it's just become a feel-good experience. We're at war. We're not in a feel-good experience. Did you just listen to this whole class we be talking about? Do you listen to the Black Imams Roundtable? Do you realize what's on the ground, what's happening? We don't got time to just sing songs and feel good and drink coffee. We're not living like that. We got real issues, right? We don't have time for that. We're under direct attack, direct, and we ain't trying to get an honorarium, so we're not going to be tap dancing just to get invited where the people are perverting the belief of our people. No, absolutely not. We're in a different situation, so we're not the same. So what you're talking about, that's good for you. For us, that is not applicable at all. You got people in our communities, in our environments, walking around talking about Allah as a body in heaven, sitting on the throne. That Allah moves through the heavens and put his feet in the hellfire. And you want us to be quiet and wait for some imaginary scholar to come to the neighborhood and was not coming. who's already pre-programmed, don't go deal with those black folk. It's already pre-programmed for that. Come on, man. Stop. Be realistic. We have to do it, whether we are qualified or not. Now, we should learn and get some qualifications, but we have to do it. Have you seen what happens to our neighborhood when that great scholar comes? Usually, he comes with some handlers, and those handlers take the money out of our community and take it to wherever they're going, or back overseas and leave us in a worse state and more confused. That's what usually happens. Have you not studied our history? Some famous learned person comes into our neighborhood, get with his handlers, find some token Negroes, give them some fake status. We start following them, take all our resources, give them all to them. They leave us. We end up dysfunctional, toe up, as they say, toe up from the flow up. And then we saying, man, we got some, and we back at square one again. While y'all float off and build universities and colleges and schools and businesses on our backs. That's what's happening. I'm not making it up. You can go all around the country. It's the same thing. So these things are as important for us to learn. We have to. We have to. We have a choice. No one is giving us another choice. This is all we have. It would be nice that you understood and was more supportive, but definitely if you ain't supportive and you're not in it, you should shut up because you have no idea what you're talking about. Zero. You're speaking from your place of privilege. You don't understand what's going on the ground. Even though you get to come and smile for 20 minutes or an hour at a masjid with some token Negro who want to show you that I'm down too. You haven't tasted the reality. Not at all. You're not qualified to speak about it. You should be quiet and listen and learn. Especially when you talk about our affairs. Right? You don't understand. You don't even know what we're dealing with. You have no clue. It's not befitting of you to talk about our situation. You should be quiet and learn something. But that doesn't separate us. It just means you're fighting a fight you can't fight. You're entering a space where you're not equipped to deal with it. Right? So you should stay on the sideline and support the soldiers on the field if you want to help. If you really want to help, support the soldiers on the field. Don't worry about how they're fighting the battle. They're fighting the battle. They know exactly what they're doing. Help them to the best of your ability. Other than that, be quiet. Don't even talk. Right? That's just real. Okay. Let's finish this last section up. Did we finish? No.
Explaining their deviation from the methodology agreed upon by the scholars of this community and warning people not to be misled by them or affected by their falsehoods. السلفية مرحلة زمنية مباركة لمذهب إسلامي.
Right. So that's what he's talking about, right? He was actually talking about the so-called Salafiyya Wahhabiyya. That is a blessed time to Salaf, not a school of thought. And he goes into all that. And we'll read this book at another time, inshallah. So, listen, let me say this before I go. Oh, I'm working too. Please, I remind you, we have a major project going on here every day for the next week or so. I hope it's finished by then, at least the first stage. We are completely repairing the roof at Masjid Muhammad. And we have a fundraising campaign to raise $25,000 to complete the musalla, to have that completely done. Some people may ask, because they ask me, well, you've been fundraising for a long time, and the reasons we never reach our goal. So let me explain to you how this works quickly. We need to fix the roof, say, for instance, $60,000 to take it off, put a new roof on, replace all the bad wood, all that, the whole process. Say it costs 60,000 for one part of the roof, right? Say just the musalla. We would get 20,000. While we got 20,000 and it stops, the rain don't stop, the snow don't stop, the storms don't stop. What happens to the roof while we're waiting to get 60 and we only had 20? Let's walk me through this together, y'all. What happens? It's raining, it's snow, it's a flat roof. And all that snow, whatever you see on the ground, is on the roof. And there's spots, bad wood. What happens? I mean, engage with me. Okay. So now we get that 20. We had the 20. You're right. But now there's a leak here. There's a leak here. There's a leak here. So are we to just hold that 20 and let the roof fall in on us? Or do we take what we have and fix what we can fix with the 20? Which one do we do? Let's think of this if this is your house, right? If this is your house, do you hold the money till you get all of it and let your roof get bad? Or do you fix what you can fix with the money you have? Which one do you do? Sometimes you got to explain this out so people understand, right? Okay, so now when you fix what you get, you can, which all of us agree, now you don't have money. Now you have to raise that money again because you still have the problem. You're just what? Fixing the immediate, real bad problem, right? So when we put those objectives, we don't get it. So therefore, you're in the same spot, right? You're in the same spot. So that's how, as someone told me, all of us just need an ongoing roof building maintenance fund. It never stops. Why? Because we never get the money to do it right the first place. Right? So now, alhamdulillah, we're able to do this. Now I'm saying, let's finish it. At $25,000, what we already put and where we at right now, we can complete the musalla. It can be done, right? Right now, we fixed all the badness, but we're going for it. If you see the videos, you go on our Facebook, we in there cutting off the roof. We're up there. And I'm actually up there with them because we're trying to save all the money we can, right? So that we can finally get the job done, right? And I don't know if you realize, Masjid Muhammad is not a small place. It's 13,500 square feet. That's huge. That's a whole block. So you can imagine water just finds the new place to go. That's all it does. You fix this and you don't fix the whole thing, it's just going to go somewhere else. And that's good. And then 6 months, a year and a half, you're going to deal with that problem. You're funny, Khadijah. Maybe Saudi will help. I wouldn't even take it. Because I know what comes with it, I wouldn't even take it. I just keep struggling. That's all. Oh, so, but we're doing it. So I remind you to do what you can to do to help. Because that's the basis from where we operate, right? So please, please, please do what you can, even if you just share it. If you can't do anything but make dua and share, you can share. Put it on your Facebook page. Make it a post every day. People like to be reminded, you know. They have good intentions, but if you only say it one time, they're going to forget about it. Right now, the goal is $25,000. That's for the roof, right? That we'll finish the musalla. Now we have a much bigger area, but there's a lot of work. So we're doing it in stages. I estimate the whole completion of the whole building will cost us, with us doing the work with skilled labor, with skilled contractor, and we doing all the labor. I think we can get the whole masjid done for $100,000. So we're going to do it in stages. You know, if you told us $100,000, forget about it. You might as well say nothing. So you got to do it in stages. 25, finish that. 25, 35, finish that area till we give it all done. Don't say $100,000, right? It just don't sound right to us. Even though it's reality, don't say that. Step by step. Finish one thing. Let us see that it's done, that we actually accomplished something. Then we're inspired to work. It's just us. But really, with us working, I would say we can get it done for 100,000. But we have to work, right? If we paid someone, you're talking about 250,000. A real contractor, a qualified contractor, 250,000. But for our building, that's nothing. That's peanuts. For what the building is worth, that's peanuts. It's a drop in a bucket. It's very well worth the money, right? And as Haja Stacy mentioned, I'm learning that too. Materials are up like 30%. Like 30%. So we're buying all our materials. So just imagine if we let a contractor try to do that, we'd really be in trouble. So we just buy the materials, everything we need, and then we just get skilled labor for the skilled stuff. But just the regular stuff, we do it. So tearing and lifting and cutting, we do all that stuff. And just get to put it back together properly, skilled contractor. So I'm saying all that because I would love to get this done before Sheikh Samir comes in January. I don't want you to come in here to listen to rain dripping, right? So I'm trying my best to get it done. Yep, Talib, that's easy. If 50 people gave $500, now the challenge is to get 50 people. And you don't even, get 50 people. We have 71 people that I'm watching right now. It was up to 100 and something, right? As soon as you start talking about money, it go down, right? But we can get it done. But this is necessary, because once it's done, now we just keep doing the work. Wait a minute. Allah has sent the man who's going to solve all of our problems. Sayyidi Abdul Qadir, Barakallahu fikum. You see the end goal? MashaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent you. Oh my goodness. So let me put that up so Abdul Qadir can see it. Go get your big friends, Abdul Qadir. Let's get this job done. Barakallahu fikum. Why didn't you call me? I don't want to just call the same person over and over again. Allah sent you. That's why I mentioned you. I don't want to keep calling you. I hate when they keep calling me sometimes. I'm like, man, somebody else do some help. But now I'm calling you. You came. Allah sent you right in the middle of the discussion. Let's get that done. Call your buddies. Let's take care of that. I love you, Habibi. We all benefit. You know how it go. So, lastly, Abdul Qadir is one of the beautifulest people I've ever met. He's a beautiful brother, mashallah. May Allah raise his rank. So this is we're trying to get this done. I'm trying to get it done next days before it rains because I don't even want to be in that situation. We got 2 more good days without rain, and inshallah, I'm gonna send pictures where we at right now. We've done a lot. We've closed in that where all that rain was coming in. We fixed that areas, that whole side. Now we just got to do the edges and the drainage and pitch the roof again. We still have work to do, but the real big problem, alhamdulillah, we took care of that first. So I'll send pictures today on the roof. I'm getting ready to go up there in a minute. So remember, January 6th through the 8th, Sheikh Samir will be here at Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City. Inshallah, you're all welcome. It doesn't cost you no money. Please RSVP so we know you're coming. Don't make it cost us more money than it already costs. So please register, right? Please register, right? It takes a few seconds. Could you put the link for the RSVP in there so that they know? Allah. All right, inshallah, I gotta get to work. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll see you tomorrow, myself. What's today's date? Today's Monday or Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday.
Monday.
Today's Monday? Okay, see, I don't even know what day it is. So tonight, Sheikh Waleed will be on tonight at 7 o'clock. Khadija, does he know what going on the field? He live in the field. He's black. He's black. He live on the field. He's black. He just down with the struggle. That's all. But he's on the field. He live in the field. Barakallahu bikum. And listen, I'm going to share something when I say that. When I mention us as a people, because I'm really dealing with real situations, we live it. We're not saying that other people don't have problems, and other people don't have struggles. We're not saying that, not at all. But what we are saying is that most likely those problems are not like ours. And that's a given fact. It's definitely relative with individual, but man, as a community and a Muslim community, we have a lot of things we have to improve on. And learning is one of them, right? For generations, we've been miseducated. Generations. We got our elders that are 70 and still think Allah is in heaven and been Muslim for 50 years. I mean, in their understanding. And they still think Allah got feet and hands and moves and takes rest. A'udhu billah. And some of them are imams. That's not because they're bad people, good brothers. They didn't learn. It wasn't available to them. That's a serious thing, man. It's generational. It's not light, right? Some of our people, victim of false Sufi sheikhs, because they didn't learn, and the sheikh just tell them, all you need is the Quran. You don't need nothing else. So they never learn Aqidah, they never learn fiqh, they never learn nothing. They just sit around with their dhikr beads and singing songs and reading Quran and kufr beliefs. Because that false fake sheikh came and told them that. And they didn't know the difference. He was just spiritual. He could talk nice and he had good, so-called good manners, and he just led them astray. That happens in our community. A lot. Different people over and over again. The false Sufi sheikh. Not just Wahhabis. We got stuff, man. We under attack. Got a brother, his whole neighborhood is struggling. He taking all his money, sending it overseas to the sheikh's village. Huh? Man, you know how many poor people you got here that don't got education? You're building a school for someone and you don't even have one in your neighborhood. Your kids ain't even learning the Quran. And you sending donations overseas someplace. When your place is looks like a war zone. That's our mindset. Because I'm getting the barakah of the sheikh. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And sheikh living high on the money, just chilling. And just send you some awrad and dhikr. Man, that's what we're dealing with. That's our people. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There are some good things, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying this is a common situation. We have to fix that. And only we're going to do that. Most people don't even care. Tayyib, barakallahu bikum. May Allah make it easy for all of y'all. Sorry for taking up so much time. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.